Hey there, Heather. Ho there. It's Jeff Cutter Down. Welcome you to yet another Stone Cold Hockey thing. We are doing the 1972-73 WHA season, World Hockey Association. Of course, we're doing things chronologically. So we're doing the 72-73 WHA set, which had 12 teams in it, just like the NHL at the time. Well, actually, no, the NHL at the time had 14 teams, and actually had to add teams in Atlanta in Long Island to try to counter the WHA. But anyway, this was the first ever season that the WHA started. It was a renegade league to try to compete with the NHL on a whole personal level. When you look at this, one, two, three, four, five. Five of the 12 cities had teams in the NHL, so they were competing with the NHL on that level, and seven other cities did not have a team. As you look at the East, you have the Quebec Nordiques, bring professional hockey to Quebec. Well, Montreal, but Quebec City is the first time since 1920, I think, with the Quebec Bulldogs. Yeah, Quebec never had a WHA team, an NHL team. Well, they had a team, the Bulldogs, 1919 to 1920, but then they left for Hamilton. So this was the first time in 5 decades that major professional hockey was going to head Quebec City. New England as a team, not the New England Patriots, but they were based out of the Springfield Civic Center, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Springfield Civic Center in Massachusetts, but they wanted to appeal to all the New England states like Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. Ottawa got a team. They were called the Ottawa Nationals, for the national capital of Canada. Ottawa hadn't seen a major professional franchise since 1934 when they moved to St. Louis, the old Ottawa Senators. So this was the first time in 4 decades. Cleveland was a team, the Cleveland Crusaders, who were a pretty good WHA team. Quebec lasted the full 7 years. So did New England. Ottawa did not last. They moved to Toronto to become the Toronto Toros, who then begot the Birmingham Bulls. Cleveland was around. They had a team, I think, all but the last season. But anyway, yeah, Cleveland Crusaders with their team. Cleveland kept trying to get an NHL team because their AHL team looked pretty good, but Cleveland just could not get through to the NHL. Philadelphia, they were the Philadelphia Blazers competing with those pesky Flyers. All that they were actually supposed to be in Miami called the Miami Screaming Eagles, but unfortunately, though, that deal fell, and Philadelphia ended up getting the team. Actually, the Nordiques were not supposed to start in Quebec. It was supposed to be in San Francisco, but that deal fell flat, so they moved to Quebec. New York, they were called the New York Golden Knights, if I remember correctly. They decided to put a team, WJ team, in New York, the New York area, and that made the NHL decide to move an NHL team. Well, the WHA team was supposed to be in Long Island, but the NHL blocked it and put an expansion team at Long Island, and then they moved to New York. The West Division, you see the Houston Aeros, they lasted almost all the WHA thing. I think they lasted till the last season. But Houston was a pretty good team and all that, bringing hockey to Texas. I mean, Texas didn't have a NHL team at all, so the WHA was trying to put a hockey team in Texas. Houston, of course, was known for Gordie Howe and the Howe brothers, Mark and his sons, Mark and Marty. But I believe this was the year that did not happen, that Gordie Howe did not take part. Los Angeles, they were called the LA Sharks, trying to get hockey in LA. The Kings were coming along quite well. Winnipeg, the Jets, trying to give Manitoba a professional team and give Canada some hope because only three Canadian cities, Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, had teams. Winnipeg lasted to the end. They were the uh, last WHA champions in 1979. Then they got shifted with Quebec, New England, and Alberta, well, soon be Edmonton Oilers, to be merged from the WHA to the NHL. Yeah, Winnipeg had Bobby Hall. That was a big move. Winnipeg made it professional. As Bobby Hall said, I want $1 million. Winnipeg gave it to him. The Chicago Cougars trying to compete with the Blackhawks in the NHL. The Alberta Oilers at the time, and then they moved to Edmonton. We got the Edmonton Oilers, trying to give professional hockey in Alberta a chance. And contrary to popular belief, there were no NHL teams in Alberta. I know you say Calgary had a team. Actually, the Flames franchise was in Atlanta until 1980 before moving to Calgary. And Minnesota, they were called the Fighting Saints, trying to fight the North Stars. So you see the 12 teams. and all that. The teams. Let's just go quickly. Alberta. Well, we're just gonna see the teams firsthand. Chicago, Cleveland, Houston, Los Angeles. Hey, they even have the locals. Cool. Minnesota, New England, New York, Ottawa, Philadelphia, Quebec, and Winnipeg. I'm actually intrigued. It was like, don't the older things have like the oh, they don't have the locals and all that. Darn. I thought they did. Yeah, 72, 73. So you see the 12 teams. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do something different. Because you don't want to see the WHA and all that. So what we're gonna do is um we're gonna have like a couple of games and all that. Try to get all 12 teams in a sense. We're gonna do Saturday games. Because we like Saturdays. So anyway, Quebec Cleveland was the first WHA game in history, and Cleveland won 6-1. As Jerry Cheevers, former Bruins icon goalie, then he left for the WHA. Cleveland's major pick for the WHA beat Serge Aubry. Quebec only goal was by Michel Pariseau, no relation to Jacques Pariseau, former Quebec premier. Cleveland goals by West, Bob Dillenbow, Pumpo, Jerry Pinder, and Bob Horton. Where did they get these guys? Alberta, Ottawa saw Ottawa win in overtime. Back when overtime actually existed, the NHL did not have regular season overtime until 1983. Les Binkley, former Penguins iconic goalie, beat Jack Norris, who used to be Chicago and Boston's goalie. Ottawa goals by Martin, Gibson, Wayne Carleton, the former Leaf and Bruin. I think that's the Bruin. The former Bruin. Carleton scored a second, and then in overtime it was Sentis from Gibbons and Trottier. So Alberta goes by Bill Hick, the former Golden Seal. Carlin, Jim Harrison, and Phil Fontaine, known as Mr. Clean in the NHL. The Thursday, Chicago versus Houston. As Chicago beats Houston first game of them 4-1 as Andre Gill beat Hughes. Houston only go by Taylor. Chicago goes by Reg Fleming, the guy who was the first NHLer to be hit with CTE. John Popel, Bob Szynski, and then Reg Fleming again. Philly, New England. New England wins 4-2. Landon beats Paille, Marcel Paille, the former Ranger. New England goes by Tom Webster, former Red Wing. Kiva Hearn again, and then Tim Caffrey. Philly goes by Pie McKenzie, who left Boston to join the WHA. Why, I don't know. And Winnipeg crushed the Raiders 7-2 as Ernie Wakely, former Blues goalie, beat Donnelly. New York goes by Ward and Bobby Sheehan, former Canadian who I had in the 71 squad. Goes by Winnipeg goes by Russo, Gratin, Johnson, Ad McDonald, Norm Baldwin, and then Bobby Hall with the last two. On the Friday, Houston goes to LA. LA's first game, and LA wins it overtime 4-3 as Gillow beats Rutledge. LA goes by LeBlanc, Service, Mike Byers, the former King, and McCaskill, the overtime winner from Slater and Crashley. Houston goes by Eric Hoekstra, who would later on go on to be a coach. Paul Papule, came in a Canuck, I think, and Mortson. Minnesota's first ever game is a 3-2 win over Winnipeg. Curran beats Ernie Wakely. Winnipeg goes by Swinson and Black. Minnesota goes two of them by Wayne Connolly, the former Leaf and Bruin. Alberta, Quebec, and Quebec wins Alain Procassion. Aubry wins Norris. Alberta goes by Cassian, Walters, and Barry. Quebec goes by Caron, Payette, Bergeron, Gaudette, and then Caron in overtime from Payette and JC Tremblay. I think Quebec really had a ton of Quebecois. So Saturday, we have Alberta, Cleveland, and Ottawa, New York. So I will try to make sure that for the WHA that when I do these things, I will try my best not to have the same team twice. So the first Saturday is Alberta, Cleveland, and Ottawa, New York. We'll play Alberta 0-2, Cleveland 1-0 as Jack Norris and Jerry Cheevers go toe to toe, former goalies for the Bruins. Bob Whedon is Cleveland's backup. Ken Brown is Alberta's backup. The Oilers have Jim Harrison, Al Hamilton, who has number 3 retired by his organization, Russ Perkins, Rusty Paddington, Ron Walters, Bobby Wall, Fel Fontaine, who was very clean. If you look up his stats in the NHL, guy went like 5 straight years in the NHL without taking a penalty. That's how clean he is. Eddie Joyle, the former King icon, Bill Hick, formerly of the Golden Seals, Brian Carlin, Doug Barry, Ron Anderson, Ken Baird, Bob Falkenberg, Steve Carlisle, Dennis Cassian, Bob McNeely, Roger Cote, John Fisher, Jim Bezaluk, and Derek Harker. Cleveland with Ron Buchanan, Gary Jarrett, Jim Weiss, Jerry Pinder, Paul Andrea, former Penguin, Joe Hardy, not a part of the Hardy Boys, Paul Schmier, great defenseman, Ray Clearwater, and North Star Schmier, Grant Erickson, Rich Pumple, Ted Hodgson, Doug Brindley, John Hanna, Skip Crake, Bill Horton, Bob Dillenbow, Wayne Malone, Ralph Hapaviori, Jim McMasters, and Al Rycroft. Here we go. First period, 2 minutes in. Chance for Paul Andrea, no. And another 2 minutes later. Alberta, try Perkins, no. Another 2, then much later. Chance for Jarrett, no. 5 minutes later. Joe Hardy takes a shot. Nothing doing through 1 period. 4 minutes later. Chance for the George. Third, Taylor. His second from Hardy and Crate. 2 minutes in, Alberta will take a penalty. It's Harrison. Cleveland will take the next year. Pop up, power play goal. Skip, position, Crate. His first from Buchanan and Andrea. 2-0. 2 minutes later. Alberta chance to score. Perkins. Oh. 4 minutes later. His name is Jared. Oh, crap, I can't make that connection. Sorry about that. You know why. Pinder and Schmiel with the assist. Dale Jarrett. Alberta Joyo trying to score a goal, but no. Dale Jarrett does again from Buchanan, making 4-0. Put Ken Brown in the net. Might as well. This game is finally it's Cote. And they killed the zone off of Jared and Mulan. They're just trying to kill the clock. Cleveland will take a penalty. Skip Crate. Can Alberta score a goal finally? No. Baird and Cassian. And they will do it. Go ahead. No. They can't score. And Jerry Cheevers gets a big shutout. And Cleveland goes to 2-0. Great win for them. 4-0. All 4 goals in the second period. Pinder, Crate, Jared, and Jarrett. So Cleveland, man, Buchanan's got 5 assists in 2 games. Unfreaking real. So that game's over. Ottawa will face New York. And it will be Gilles Gratton, Gratuni the Looney, as people in the NHL would soon get to know him. Gary Kurt will be in that for the Raiders. He's the backup to Ron Donnelly and Ian Wilkie, the other goalie. Gratton, the lead goalie for the Nationals, with Les Binkley, the former Penguin icon, and Frank Blum backing him up. Ottawa has Wayne Carlton, who scored some goals for Boston in the 71 playoffs replay against the Habitants. Gavin Kirk, known for his strange superstition, having a kernel of corn and then flicking it at players who would get hot and help Ottawa make the playoffs. Bob Charlebois, not the singer, that's Robert Charlebois. Guy Trottier, former Leaf. Bob Battleship Leduc. Stevie King, not that one. Tom Martin, Brian Gibbons, Dick Senses, Rick Cunningham, Jack Gibson, Ron Climbing, Brian Conacher, tired of being in the Leafs limelight because of his uncle Charlie Conacher, Ken Stevenson, Tom Simpson, Mike Boland, Mike Amadeo, Steve Ward, Chris Maloff, Ron Riley, John Donnelly, and Merv Haney. New York has Ron Ward, Bobby Sheehan, former we had him on the roster. Wayne Rivers, I think he was a former Blue and Bruin. Gene Peacock, Norm Ferguson, Kenny Block, Brian Bradley, not that Brian Bradley, Mike Lawton, Brian Perry, Craig Rickman, Bill Spear, Hal Willis, Kent Douglas, the former Leaf and Golden Seal, Wally Olds, Bob Winograf, Jamie Kennedy, not that Jamie Kennedy, Jerry Peters, Brian Morenz. I don't think he was related to Hal Morenz. Claude Chartres, Alton White, Ted Scarf, who I believe was an executive with the Kitchener Rangers, if I remember right. Bob Brown and Jean Gauthier. Here we go. 5 minutes into the game. Transfer Ottawa, Charlebois? No. Much later. Transfer Ottawa, Skill. The 5 Centis. Dick Centis, that is his second from Gavin Kirk and Ronnie Climby. Makes it 1-0 Ottawa. 5 minutes later. Timing, 2 minutes later. Injury. Deliver a hit. And Ottawa has a 1-0 lead after 20 minutes. 5 minutes later. First from Sheehan and Bobby Brown. 1. Much later. Ron Childress scored the second from Richmond. 2-1. Much later. New York a chance, Wayne Rivers? No. And New York has a 2-1 lead after 40. Was that 20? Agitator. Ottawa will get agitated. Gibbons. No shot by Brian Perry. And no shot by Prakash. A couple minutes later. Aggression. Lee. It's Stevenson. Rivers mishands the back. Passing. Scores. Battleship Leduc with a shorty from Centis and Wayne Carleton. 2-2. Rashcliffe tried to score on the power play. Can't. New York. Brian Bradley? No. 3 minutes later. Action by Charlebois? No. 3 minutes later. Precaution, second of the night from Kent Douglas. 2-2. Getting close. WHA tries to score. Now we have an empty net. Dick Centis scores with a 6-man. His 6 cent scores. His second of the night from Mike Bolins. 3-3. And we are going to overtime. They went to regular season overtime, whereas San Angelo did not. 2 minutes into the overtime. Ottawa chance climbing? No. Then later, 5 minutes later. Overtime, he just scores on pro luck. Overtime goal by assisted by Winograd and Ward. 4-3 New York. In overtime. Gradden's like unreal. We can't believe we lost to New York. Ottawa goes by Centis, Leduc and Centis. New York goes by Prakash, Ward, Prakash, and Morans. So great job by both teams. Sunday, everyone plays on Sunday. What's our timing? 18 minutes. We're going to go with Chicago, Minnesota, right? Yeah, Chicago and Minnesota. Yeah, all 12 teams are playing. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4 undefeated teams left. Chicago and Minnesota, we are going to feature them. Yeah, we're going to feature Chicago and Minnesota. LA beats Houston 4-2, so they're still undefeated. New York beats Philly 6-3. Cleveland's no longer unbeaten. They lost to Ottawa. And Winnipeg crushes Alberta, who are in deep trouble. Chicago, Minnesota. It will be Mike Curran in net for Minnesota. Chicago puts Jim McLeod in the net. Andre Gill and Paul Menard, the backups. Mike Curran, the leader for the Fighting Saints, with Jack McCartan, who was the hero in 1960 when the U.S. won the gold medal in hockey. I know a lot of you figured the 1980 U.S. team won the gold medal. You're right. But people forget that 1960, the U.S. did so too. And they took out the Soviet. Was it the Soviet Union or the Czechs? I think it was the Czechs who were looking for a gold medal in 1960. And then the Russian captain got to the U.S. dressing room as Squall Valley and motioned. He didn't know English, but he motioned them to take oxygen, and the U.S. beat the Czechs. Yeah, Jack McCartan there. Carl Wetzel, former North Stars goalie, is your third wheel. Chicago Cougars have Bob Sasinski, Rosie Paymon, the former Vancouver Canucks icon shooter who had to be coned with hypnosis but didn't work. Reggie Fleming, the first NHLer to hit with CTE. Jan Popeil, Bob Whitlock, Rick Morris, Dan Loboda, Bob Lennington, Ron F. Anderson, Bob Barber, Dave Prosovite, Ron Zane, Daryl Nibbs, Larry Cahan, unfortunately known as one of the guys who made that check on Bill Masterton, and then he later died. Brian Glenwright, Bernie Blanchette, Ed Hatum, Jerry Truian, Pierre Fiel, and Dick McGlynn. The Fighting Saints, Wayne Connolly, former Bruins star, Ted Hampson, former Golden Seal, Bill Klatt, Mike McMahon, Keith Christensen, George Morrison, Bob McMillan. I think that was after he was with the Leafs and before he went to the Flames. Terry Ball, Mike Antonovich, John Arbor, Fred Speck, Jim Johnson, Len Lullingham, Mel Pearson, Terry Ryan, Dick Paradise, Frank Sanders, not that Cardinals wide receiver, George Connick, Craig Folkman, Mike Curran, and Blaine Reitman, trying to get no goalies. Minnesota, Paradise. Morris tried to take a shot and no, and Fleming tried to score. Much later. Mike McMahon, no. 2 minutes later. Guess who? Mike McMahon. Paymon can't do anything, now they can sing. Last moments of the third. Nothing doing, and these teams will go to the second period. 5 minutes later. Battle, pressure. 2 minutes Arbor for 2. Kapinski delivers a hit. Gets hit. Rubanski, Pepper goal. Bobby Whitlock. His first goal from Rosie Paymont makes it 1-0 Chicago. 4 minutes later. Bobby in the first goal. No penalty. 4 minutes later. Chicago Skiers. Rick Morris. His first goal from Ron Anderson and Bobby Whitlock. 2-0 Chicago. 3 minutes later. Bob Liddington. Look at the Steelers! Come up. Bobby McMillan scores from Christensen and Mike McMahon. McMillan White. Minnesota breaks the shutout. 2-0. 2-1. 3 more minutes left. Clyde can't do anything. Now they can melt Pearson. Much later. Chance for Sasinski! 4 minutes later. Hampson. Empty net? No. And Chicago beats Minnesota 2-1. They're now 2 for 2. Nice job by McLeod. So that's it. As he said, Ottawa, Cleveland, Houston, New York, New England, Quebec. So we'll take a look at New England, Quebec on Saturday. So we're going to do Saturday and then onwards. So New England and Quebec have not faced each other. So Chicago, New England on the 16th. New England beats Chicago 4-3 in overtime, so they're still undefeated. Alberta finally wins again. They beat Winnipeg 2-0. Cleveland shuts out New York 7-0, and Minnesota finally beats LA. I think that means every team has lost a game. New England loses to Houston. So yeah, I think every team now has lost. I think you're right. Houston beats Minnesota. LA beats Philly. New England beats Quebec. New York beats Cleveland, and Chicago beats Ottawa. Friday games, and that'll be it. So that's all your scoring you're going to get. The top 4 teams in each one moves on. So have fun. Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do